The crystal towers of Velshara caught the distant sunlight and threw rainbows across the mining colony. Children played in the gardens while their parents worked deep in the tunnels below. 3,000 Valarn called this moon home. They were peaceful people, their bodies made of living crystal that hummed softly when they spoke. They had come to Krethi 7 to mine rare minerals, but over 20 years it had become something more. It had become home. Colony Director Shalnara stood at the observation window of the command center, watching the children. Her crystalline form glowed with a soft blue light, the color of contentment. She had reports to review, supplies to order, and a council meeting in an hour. It was a normal day. Then the sensors screamed. "Director!" The communications officer's voice cracked with fear. "Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. They're not responding to hails." Shalnara's glow shifted to orange, the color of alarm. She moved to the sensor display. Her hope died when she saw the signatures. Long, angular ships with weapons bristling from every surface. The marks on their hulls were unmistakable. "Krath," she whispered. The Krath swarm were the nightmare of the frontier colonies. Insectoid raiders who took slaves and left nothing but ashes behind. They had destroyed 7 colonies in the past 3 years. The Galactic Council had sent warnings but no protection. The frontier was too far, too expensive to defend. Raise shields. Send a distress signal. Get everyone to the tunnels. Shalnara's voice was steady despite the terror freezing her core. The Krath didn't wait. They didn't negotiate. The first missile struck the shield generator before the evacuation alarm even finished its first cycle. The explosion threw Shalnara against the wall. Crystal cracked along her shoulder. She felt the hot pain of it but pushed herself up. "Communications, send the beacon!" "I'm trying. The relay tower is..." Another explosion. The command center's window shattered. Shalnara crawled to the communications panel through smoke and sparks. Her officer lay still, his crystal body cracked beyond healing. She reached the panel and activated the emergency beacon with her own hands. "This is Colony Velshara, Krethi 7 system. We are under attack by Krath raiders. 3,000 civilians. Request immediate assistance. Please, anyone." The ceiling collapsed. Shalnara threw herself aside, but the debris crushed the main transmitter. She grabbed the backup unit, barely bigger than her hand. It had limited power, limited range. She programmed it with shaking fingers and threw it as hard as she could through the broken window. It would land somewhere in the rubble. Maybe it would keep broadcasting, maybe someone would hear. Outside, the Krath ships landed like locusts. Hundreds of warriors poured out, their chitinous armor black as space. They carried plasma weapons and electric nets. They didn't kill everyone they found. That would be wasteful. The Krath took slaves. Shalnara ran through the streets of her colony, helping people into the tunnel entrances. Children cried. Parents grabbed what they could carry. The defenders, barely 100 civilians with mining tools and old security weapons, formed a line to buy time. "Into the tunnels, go deep. Seal the doors behind you." Shalnara pushed the last group inside and looked back. The defenders died buying them minutes. The Krath were professional killers. The Valarn were miners. Shalnara was the last one in. She sealed the heavy blast door and felt it shudder as weapons fire hit the other side. The tunnel stretched down into darkness, lit by emergency lights. 3,000 people had made it inside. Maybe. She hadn't had time to count. The tunnels became their prison. The Valarn had supplies down here, medical facilities, even sleeping quarters for the miners. They had water from underground springs. But food for 3,000 people? They had maybe 2 weeks. The Krath didn't storm the tunnels. They were patient. They set up camps outside every entrance and waited. Sometimes they would blast a tunnel entrance, letting the Valarn know they were still there. Sometimes they would broadcast messages in broken galactic standard. "Come out. We will be merciful. Your children will work. You will see them grow. Stay inside, and you all die." Nobody believed them. Everyone knew what Krath mercy looked like. On the 6th day, Shalnara called a meeting of the surviving leaders. They met in the deepest chamber, where the hum of the mining equipment masked their voices. "The Galactic Council received our beacon," said Telmora, the chief engineer. They responded. They're sending ships. When? Shalnara asked. 3 weeks. Silence filled the chamber. They had food for maybe 8 more days if they rationed carefully. They're not coming in time, someone said. They're not coming at all, another voice added. Council policy. They don't risk military ships for lost colonies. Shalnara felt her light dim. She had been on the Council observer ship during the Void War, 30 years ago. She knew how they thought. Assets and losses, risk versus reward. 3,000 Velarn on a frontier moon didn't balance against a council fleet. That night, she gathered the children in the main sleeping chamber. They were scared. They asked when they could go home, when they could see the sky again. Shalnara sat with them and did what her own mother had done when she was young and afraid. She told them a story. Long ago, in the Void War, I served on a council ship, she began. We were observers, watching the battles between the Alliance and the Hive. We were not supposed to fight. We were only supposed to watch and report. The children pressed closer, but the Hive found us. 30 ships, and we had only 5 escorts. We ran. The escorts tried to protect us, but one by one they fell. We thought we would die. What happened? A small voice asked. Humans happened, Shalnara said softly. They were new to the galaxy then, only 40 years since first contact. Everyone thought they were primitive, violent, dangerous. One of their ships, a frigate called Defiant, heard our distress call. Just one ship. Did they run away? No, little one. They came. One ship against 30. They flew like demons, like nothing we had ever seen. They didn't fight like other species. They fought like every person on that council ship was their own family. They fought like losing was not an option. Did you survive? Obviously, Shalnara said with a faint humor. The Defiant held the line until reinforcements arrived. 12 humans died that day. Died for people they had never met. For aliens who most of their own people feared. She looked at the children, their crystal bodies glowing softly in the darkness. People call humans the Stormbringers. When hope is gone, when death is certain, humans come like a storm. Fast, fierce, unstoppable. Will they come for us? The smallest child asked. Shalnara dimmed her glow, the equivalent of a sad smile. No, little one. They haven't been seen in the frontier for 30 years. They went quiet after the war. But it's a nice story, isn't it? The children fell asleep dreaming of storms and salvation. Shalnara stayed awake listening to the distant sounds of the Krath outside and knew that no storm was coming. They were alone. 12 days underground, 12 days of darkness, fear, and hunger. The emergency rations were gone. The Velarn were surviving on mineral supplements and water. It kept them alive but did nothing for the constant ache of hunger. Shalnara walked through the tunnels checking on her people. The crystal bodies that had once glowed with bright colors now flickered dimly. The children no longer played. They sat quietly with their parents, conserving energy. Some of the elderly had already entered hibernation, their bodies shutting down to preserve their lives. The Krath had breached 3 of the outer tunnels. Each breach meant falling back deeper, sealing more doors, losing more space. The defenders fought with mining lasers and improvised explosives. They killed some Krath, but there were always more. Krath Commander Zethrak was enjoying himself. He sat in the command tent on the surface, eating fresh food while reviewing the mining colony's records. The minerals here were valuable, yes, but the Velarn themselves would bring a better price. Crystalline species were rare in the slave markets. How much longer until they break? His second-in-command asked. 3 days, maybe 4. They're starving down there. Starving people make mistakes. Desperate people surrender. Zethrak clicked his mandibles together in what passed for Krath laughter. And if they don't surrender, we flood the tunnels with nerve gas. Either way, we win. He prepared an ultimatum message and broadcast it into the tunnels. His translator made his voice sound almost friendly. Velarn colonists, you have fought bravely, but this is over. You have 12 hours to surrender. Open the doors, come out peacefully, and your children will be treated well. They will work, but they will live. Refuse and we will kill you all. 12 hours. Choose life. In the deepest chamber, the message echoed from the speakers. The Velarn listened in silence. "We should surrender," someone said. "For the children?" "The Krath don't keep promises," Telmora replied. His crystal body had a crack running through it from a cave-in. "They'll separate families. Work the children to death. It's what they do." "Then what do we do?" The voice was pleading. "Wait to die?" Shalinara had no answer. She had sent final messages, recorded goodbyes to relatives on other worlds. She had done everything she could. It wasn't enough. She found herself in the old mining control room. Equipment that had once mapped mineral deposits now sat silent. Young Kur was there, the engineer who had maintained the communication systems. He was barely 20 cycles old, his crystal body still bright green despite everything. "Director," he said, "I found something." He pointed to a small monitor. It showed a weak signal transmission. The emergency beacon. It's still broadcasting. Shalinara felt a spike of hope, then crushing disappointment. "To who? We're in dead space. The nearest relay station is 3 light years away." "I know, but it's been broadcasting for 12 days straight. The backup power cell shouldn't last that long. I checked the logs." Kier pulled up data on the screen. Someone modified it, made it more efficient. It happened during the first attack. Shalinara remembered her frantic programming before throwing the beacon into the rubble. Had she done that? She couldn't remember. "It doesn't matter," she said quietly. "No one's coming." "But what if—" "No one's coming, Kier." She walked away before he could see her light dim to almost nothing. That night, Shalinara sat alone and let herself remember. She pulled up old files from her time as a council observer. Video logs from the Void War. She found the one she was looking for, the battle where the Defiant saved them. She watched the human frigate move across the screen. It fought nothing like other ships. Other species fought with careful precision, preserving their vessels, calculating risks. The Defiant fought like it was alive, like it was angry. It dove through enemy formations, its weapons blazing. It took hits that should have destroyed it and kept fighting. She remembered the moment the Hive ships had targeted the Council transport. She remembered thinking, "This is how I die." Then the Defiant had simply placed itself between the transport and the enemy. One ship, acting as a shield for strangers. The battle recording showed the Defiant's hull breaking apart, atmosphere venting, but still firing, still protecting them. When reinforcements finally arrived, the Defiant was barely functioning. 12 crew members dead, 34 injured. The captain, a woman with sharp eyes and gray hair, had responded to the Council's thanks with 5 words. "That's what we do, ma'am." Shalinara turned off the recording. That was 30 years ago. The humans had been young to the galaxy then, eager to prove themselves. After the Void War ended, they had pulled back to their own territories. They became isolationists, trading but not engaging. Whatever fire had driven them to help seemed to have cooled. The attack came at hour 11. The Krath were tired of waiting. They blasted through the northern tunnel entrance with heavy explosives. The blast killed 15 Velarn instantly and opened a path into the colony's heart. The defenders rushed to the breach, mining lasers against military plasma rifles, improvised barricades against trained killers. They fought anyway because there was nothing else to do. Shalinara joined them, carrying a laser cutter she barely knew how to use. She stood with miners and teachers and farmers, all of them firing at the shadows pouring through the breach. They killed some Krath, not enough. "Never enough, fall back," someone shouted. "Fall back to the central chamber." They ran through the tunnels, carrying wounded, dragging equipment. The Krath followed, methodical and patient. They weren't rushing. Why would they? There was nowhere for the Velarn to go. The central chamber was the largest space in the mining complex. It was where they had processed ore, where machinery still hummed with power from the geothermal generators. Now it became their last stand. 300 defenders against 800 Krath, and behind the defenders, 2,700 civilians, children, elderly, injured, all of them trapped. Shalinara stood at the barricade and felt her crystal body resonate with certainty. This was where it ended. "It was an honor to serve with you all," she said to the people around her. They didn't respond. They just gripped their weapons tighter. The Krath commander's voice echoed through the chamber. "Last chance, Velarn. Surrender now." Shalinara raised her weapon. "We refuse." "Then die." Far above them, so far that sound couldn't reach, something happened in the dead space of orbit. Reality rippled. Space itself seemed to tear open. Energy signatures blazed like newborn stars. 15 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. On the surface, Krath sensors shrieked warnings. Raiders scrambled to their ships, confused. They had swept this system. There was nothing here but the colony. The new ships were smaller than the Krath fleet, but they moved with purpose. No hesitation, no hails. They came in hard and fast, their weapons already powering up. In the Krath command ship, Zethrak looked at the sensor data with disbelief. Who are they? His officer checked the database. The ship signatures were old, outdated, from species barely worth remembering. Then the database pinged with a match. Sir, those are human ships. Zethrak felt something he rarely experienced. Concern. He had heard stories. Old stories. Stories from the Void War about humans who fought like demons. But that was 30 years ago. And humans were just another species. He outnumbered them 4-1. All ships, attack formation. Let's remind these mammals why they went into hiding. The Krath fleet moved to intercept. In the central chamber below, the Velarn knew nothing of what was happening above. They prepared to die. Then the ceiling exploded, not from Krath weapons. From something falling from above. A single object crashed through 200 meters of rock and metal, punching through stone like it was glass. It hit the chamber floor with a sound like thunder. Silence, dust, and smoke filled the air. The object was a pod, scorched metal. Military markings. A door on its side hissed and blew outward. Figures emerged from the smoke. They wore heavy armor, carried weapons that hummed with power, 6 of them moving like predators. The lead figure stopped in front of Shalnara. Through the helmet's visor, she saw human eyes. The figure spoke in perfect galactic standard. U.S. Colonial Marines, ma'am. Sorry we're late. Shalnara's crystal body flared bright with colors she had never felt before. Colors that meant one thing, hope. The Marine removed her helmet. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with dark skin and eyes that looked too calm for someone who had just crashed through a mountain. Her name tape read Morrison. Sergeant Jake Morrison, she said, and Shalnara realized her mistake. The Marine was male. Human genders were confusing. We picked up your beacon 11 days ago. Came as fast as we could. 11 days. Shalnara's voice trailed off. That was how long faster than light travel took from the nearest human outpost. They had left immediately. No debate, no committee. Just responded. How many hostiles in the tunnels? Morrison asked. 800, maybe more. Morrison nodded like she had told him the weather was nice. He activated his communications. Thunderhead, this is Ground Team Alpha. We have survivors. Estimate 800 Krath in the complex. Request immediate reinforcement. A woman's voice came back. Copy that, Alpha. Fire support inbound. Hold position. Morrison turned to his squad. Perimeter. Nothing gets past us. Then he looked at Shalnara. Ma'am, I need you to get your people to the back of this chamber. Things are about to get loud. Above them, in orbit, Captain Maria Chen stood on the bridge of the USCS Thunderhead. Her carrier was the largest ship in the human fleet. But even it looked small compared to the Krath vessels spreading out to meet them. They outnumber us badly. Captain, her tactical officer said. They outnumber us exactly the way we expected, Chen replied. She had gray hair at her temples and the kind of face that never smiled when lives were at stake. All ships engage. The human fleet moved. They didn't fight like other species. The Galactic Council preferred long-range combat, ships firing at each other across thousands of kilometers of space. Safe, calculated, boring. Humans fought close. The destroyer. Relentless led the charge. It accelerated directly at the Krath line, point defense systems blazing. Missiles that should have destroyed it were shot down. Energy beams that should have cut it apart hit reinforced armor that somehow held. The Relentless didn't stop. It punched through the Krath formation and rolled, its railguns firing at point-blank range. A Krath cruiser exploded. Another lost its engines. They're insane, Zethrak muttered from his command ship. Pull back. Use range. But the other human ships were already among them. Corvettes too small to be called warships darted between the larger Krath vessels, firing at engines and weapons. Frigates formed overlapping defensive positions, their point defense systems creating zones of interlocking fire that nothing could pass through. And the Thunderhead launched its payload. Dozens of drop pods, each carrying 6 Marines, fired from its launch tubes. They descended toward the colony like a meteor storm. They're dropping troops during a space battle? Zethrak's second-in-command sounded confused. They'll all die. But the human ships had formed a corridor. Any Krath vessel that tried to fire on the pods found itself immediately targeted by 3 or 4 human ships. The pods fell through, protected by a shield of moving warships. In the central chamber, Morrison's squad had set up a defensive line. The Krath had regrouped and were pushing forward. Plasma fire filled the tunnels. "Contacts North Tunnel," one Marine called out. "Light them up," Morrison replied. The human weapons made sounds that Shalnara had never heard, not the whine of plasma or the hiss of lasers. A deep, rapid percussion. Bullets. Primitive by galactic standards, but moving so fast they tore through Krath armor like paper. The first wave of Krath died before they could fire back. Reloading. "Cover fire." The Marines moved like parts of one organism. When one reloaded, others increased fire. They used the mining equipment as cover, repositioning constantly. The Krath couldn't pin them down. Telmora watched in amazement. "There are only 6 people." "6 people who know what they're doing," Shalnara replied. Morrison pulled a device from his belt and threw it down the tunnel. "Frag out!" The explosion made Shalnara's crystal body vibrate painfully. Krath screams followed. "We need to help them," Telmora said suddenly. "We're not soldiers." "Neither were you before today." Telmora grabbed a mining laser. "If they can drop from space to save us, we can stand beside them." Other Velarn joined him, miners, teachers, scientists. They picked up weapons and moved to the barricade. Morrison glanced at them. "Ever fired those in combat?" "No," Telmora admitted. "Aim for center mass. Don't try to be fancy. When I say fall back, you fall back. Understood?" Telmora's crystal body glowed with determination. "Understood." The next Krath wave hit harder. They had brought heavier weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt through barriers. Morrison's squad shifted tactics immediately, using grenades to collapse tunnel sections, creating choke points where numbers didn't matter, and the Velarn fought. They were clumsy. They were scared. But they stood their ground. Kerr, the young engineer, used his knowledge of the tunnels to direct fire. "The left tunnel has a weak ceiling. If you hit it there..." A Marine fired a rocket launcher. The ceiling collapsed, sealing that tunnel. "Good call, kid," the Marine said. Outside, more drop pods hit the surface. 400 Marines emerged and immediately engaged the Krath on the surface. They moved in squads, supporting each other, using terrain and tactics that the Krath couldn't counter. Krath were raiders. They were good at overwhelming weak opponents. But Marines trained for actual combat, for opponents who fought back, for battles where losing meant death. The humans were better. Zethrak watched his ground forces fall back in confusion. He watched his fleet take damage from the aggressive human tactics. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. "Focus fire on their carrier," he ordered. "Kill the command ship." 5 Krath heavy cruisers turned their weapons on the Thunderhead. Captain Chen saw it coming. "All power to forward shields." "Helm, take us in." "Captain?" Her helmsman sounded uncertain. "You heard me. Right at them." The Thunderhead accelerated toward the Krath cruisers. Its shields blazed with energy as weapons fire hammered against them. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. Shields at 60%, 50, 40. Chen's eyes never left the tactical display. "Hold course. 30%. Captain, we can't." "Oh," the distance closed. The Krath cruisers poured fire into the carrier. The Thunderhead's shields were failing. Then Chen smiled. "Now." The Thunderhead rolled. Its massive bulk presented its starboard side to the enemy, and 100 missile tubes fired simultaneously. At this range, there was no defense. The missiles covered the distance in seconds. 3 Krath cruisers exploded. The other 2 lost power and began to drift. "That's for making me late to dinner," Chen muttered. She had promised her wife she would be home by Tuesday. It was now Friday. In the central chamber, Morrison heard the update through his communications. "Ground teams, be advised. Enemy fleet is breaking. Surface forces are in retreat. Copy that, Thunderhead." Morrison looked at the tunnel ahead. One more push. "Marines, advance." They didn't wait for the Krath to attack. They pushed forward, clearing tunnel after tunnel. The Krath, learning their fleet was losing, began to panic. Some tried to fight. Some tried to run. Morrison didn't let them run. Zethrak found himself retreating to his lander. His perfect raid had become a disaster. How? They had outnumbered the humans. They had superior positions, but the humans hadn't cared about numbers or positions. They had cared about winning. His lander was taking fire. He pushed his pilot aside and took the controls himself. He would escape, regroup, come back with more ships. A human Marine stepped into his path. The human was bleeding from a dozen wounds but still standing. The nameplate read Morrison. Going somewhere? Morrison asked. Zethrak raised his weapon. Morrison was faster. The human's rifle fired and Zethrak's weapon shattered. Another burst and Zethrak's legs gave out. He collapsed. Morrison stood over him. This colony? These people? They're under human protection now. You tell whatever's left of your friends. Tell everyone. Earth doesn't forget. Zethrak looked up at the human, trying to understand. What are you? Why do you care about these aliens? Morrison considered the question. Then he simply said, We're the ones who show up when everyone else has given up. He zip-tied Zethrak's hands and left him for the security team. In orbit, the last Krath ships jumped to faster-than-light travel. They ran. The human fleet let them go. Captain Chen opened communications to all human ships. Secure the area. Medical teams to the surface. Engineering teams to assess the colony. Good work, everyone. Below, in the central chamber now cleared of enemies, Morrison approached Shalnara again. Behind him, Marines were setting up medical stations, distributing food, checking on the civilians. Colony Director, Morrison said, the Thunderhead has medical facilities. We'll be evacuating the wounded first, but everyone will get checked out. Shalnara looked around at her people. The children were crying, but now from relief. The defenders were sitting down, exhausted. They had survived. You came, she said quietly. After 30 years of silence, you still came. Morrison followed her gaze to the children. Ma'am, we heard someone crying for help. That's all we needed to hear. The battle for the tunnels was over, but the work had just begun. Marine engineers moved through the colony, securing damaged sections and restoring power. Medical teams set up triage centers, treating the wounded Velarn with equipment that seemed almost magical compared to what the colonists had. Shalnara watched a human medic carefully examine a child who had been injured in the first attack. The medic's hands were gentle, her voice soft despite the armor she wore. You're going to be fine, little one, the medic said. See this? It's a bone knitter. Well, a crystal knitter for you. It'll help you heal faster. The child's parents stood nearby, their crystal bodies glowing with gratitude. 12 days ago, they had thought they would watch their child die. Now human medics were putting her back together. Morrison found Shalnara on the surface. She had wanted to see the sky again, to prove to herself that it was really over. The human had removed his helmet and was eating something from a ration pack. Want one? He offered her a package. Oh, wait. You don't eat like we do, right? We absorb minerals through our skin, Shalnara explained. But thank you. They stood in silence, watching human ships patrol the orbit above. In the distance, Marines were processing captured Krath. There weren't many. Most had died fighting and the rest had fled. How many did you lose? Shalnara asked quietly. Morrison's face grew somber. 12 Marines. 3 more won't make it, even with our medical tech, and 3 ships took critical damage. The frigate Belfast will need complete rebuilding. 15 human lives. For 3,000 Velarn they had never met. I'm sorry, Shalnara said, don't be. They knew the risks. We all did. Morrison looked at her. I read the report. You held out for 12 days against a force that should have taken you in 12 hours. Your people fought like soldiers when they were just miners and teachers. We had no choice. Everyone has a choice. You chose to fight. You chose to protect your children. That's more courage than most soldiers ever show. A young Marine approached and saluted. Sergeant, Captain Chen wants to see you aboard the Thunderhead. Tell her I'll be up in 10. The Marine nodded and left. Morrison stood and offered Shalnara his hand. Come with me. The captain wants to meet you. The shuttle ride to the Thunderhead was Shalnara's first time in space since the attack. Through the viewport she could see the battle damage, scorch marks on hulls, sections sealed with emergency patches. One frigate was missing its entire forward section. You took all this damage for us, she said. The pilot, a woman with short red hair, glanced back. Ma'am, the Relentless took a plasma cannon hit that killed 6 crew members. You know what the captain of the Relentless said? Worth it? How are the colonists? The Thunderhead's landing bay was organized chaos. Shuttles coming and going, Marines being debriefed, engineers checking equipment. No one seemed to be resting. Captain Chen met them in her ready room. She was shorter than Shalnara expected, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a simple tie. Her uniform was clean but worn, like she had been wearing it for days. "Colony Director Shalnara," Chen said, offering her hand in the human gesture. "I'm glad we made it in time." "You didn't," Shalnara said quietly. 147 of my people died before you arrived." Chen's expression didn't change, but her eyes showed pain. "I know, I'm sorry. We pushed our engines past safety limits to get here faster. If we had been closer—" "You came from 11 days away," Shalnara interrupted. "That's how far, isn't it? You dropped everything and came the moment you heard our beacon." Chen nodded. "The listening post on Frontier Station 7 picked up your signal. Fragmented, barely coherent, but enough. We scrambled the fleet within an hour." "Why?" The question burst from Shalnara. "Your species hasn't been seen on the frontier in 30 years. The Galactic Council thinks you went isolationist. Why do you still listen for distress calls?" Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to a viewport and looked out at the damaged colony below. "Do you know why humans pulled back after the Void War?" she asked. "The Council said humans were too aggressive, too violent. There were complaints. There were." Chen's voice was bitter. "We fought in that war. We lost ships and people protecting Council worlds. And afterward, the Council told us we were too dangerous, that our tactics were brutal, that we needed to calm down." She turned back to Shalnara. "So we did. We went back to our space, handled our own problems. But we kept the listening posts. We kept ships ready, because we knew that someday, somewhere, someone would call for help and the Council would decide they weren't worth saving. Like us," Shalnara said. "Like you. Like the mining station on Theta Primus 6 months ago. Like the research outpost on Kelvara last year. Like 37 other colonies, stations, and ships in the past 3 years." Chen pulled up a star map. Red dots marked locations across the frontier. "Every one of these is a place we responded to. Places the Council couldn't or wouldn't protect." Shalnara stared at the map. 37, we don't advertise it. We don't ask for recognition or payment. We just do it." Chen closed the display. "Because someone has to." A communication came through. "Captain, the Galactic Council ship just dropped out of FTL. They're hailing us." Chen's expression went cold. "Put them through." The view screen showed a counselor Shalnara recognized. Counselor Vex, a high-ranking official from the Central Worlds. His species looked like an upright salamander with iridescent scales. "Captain Chen," Vex said in his smooth voice, "we are pleased to see the human fleet has responded to this crisis. The Council is prepared to take command of the relief efforts." "No." Vex blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. Chen's voice was steel. "We responded to the distress call. We fought the battle. We're handling the relief effort. The Council is welcome to send supplies, but you're not taking command of anything. Captain, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a Council matter. This stopped being a Council matter when you decided these people weren't worth saving." Chen leaned forward. "We monitored your communications. You received the distress call 13 days ago. Your response? Too far. Too risky. Not enough strategic value. Direct quotes from your security committee." Vex's scales flushed with color. "That information is classified." "Not anymore." Chen smiled without humor. "So here's what happens next. You send supplies. You send repair equipment. You send anything these people need. What you don't do is pretend you were here all along, clear? The Council will hear about this. Good, tell them humans said hello. Tell them we're still here. Still watching. And still protecting people you won't." Chen cut the connection. Shalnara's crystal body was glowing with colors she couldn't identify. "You just told off the Galactic Council. Someone should have done it years ago." Chen turned to Morrison. "Sergeant, I'm authorizing extended deployment. I want Marines on the surface until the colony is fully secure and all repairs are complete." "Yes, ma'am." "How long?" "However long it takes." Morrison saluted and left. Chen looked at Shalnara. "Your people are safe now. We'll stay until you can defend yourselves. We'll help rebuild your defenses, train your security forces. The Krath won't be back. Because you'll be watching. Because everyone will know humans are watching." Chen pulled up another display, this one showing communications traffic. "In the past 2 hours, news of this battle has spread to 40 systems. Pirates, raiders, slavers, they're all hearing the same thing. Touch a colony on the frontier, and humans will come. And we don't negotiate. Shalinara understood. This wasn't just about saving one colony. It was about sending a message. You're declaring the frontier under your protection. Unofficially. The council would never allow it officially. But word spreads. Chen looked at her seriously. Your people suffered, and I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner. But maybe next time, maybe for some other colony, the raiders will think twice. They'll remember what happened here. They'll remember the storm, Shalnara said softly. Chen raised an eyebrow. It's what I call you. What I've always called you since the Void War. The Stormbringers. You come fast, hit hard, and change everything. Chen considered this. I like that. Stormbringers. She offered her hand again. We'll get your colony back on its feet, Colony Director. You have my word. Shalnara took the hand. Thank you, Captain. For everything. 3 days later, the colony was unrecognizable. Human engineers had restored power, rebuilt critical infrastructure, and set up a proper defense grid. Marines had trained the Velarn security forces in basic tactics. Medical teams had treated everyone who needed help. But more than that, the colony felt alive again. Children played in the gardens. Adults worked to rebuild their homes. There was laughter. Morrison stood with Shalnara at the main entrance. His squad was loading back onto shuttles, preparing to return to the Thunderhead. Leaving? She asked. Orders. There's another situation, 3 systems over. Pirate activity near a civilian convoy. He smiled. Never a dull moment. Will you ever rest? When everyone's safe? Sure. Until then... He shrugged. Shalnara reached into her robe and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with a soft, steady light. In our culture, we give these to family. It's a piece of ourselves, our essence crystallized. So you're always with us. She pressed it into his hand. You and your people. Your family now. 3 weeks after the storm had passed, the Galactic Council met in their grand chamber on the central world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 200 species filled the tiered seats, their voices echoing in a dozen languages as translators worked to keep up. Councillor Vex stood at the podium, his scales flushed with embarrassment and anger. The human fleet acted without council authorization. They engaged in military action in neutral space. They refused to cooperate with council forces. This cannot stand. A councillor from the avian species clicked her beak. They saved 3,000 lives. They violated protocol. Vex slammed his hand on the podium. Protocol exists for a reason. We cannot have individual species taking military action whenever they please. The protocol that says we don't risk ships for frontier colonies? This from a councillor Shalnara didn't recognize, a being made of crystalline structures similar to her own people. The protocol that would have left the Velarn to die? That is not what I said, but it's what you meant. The crystalline councillor stood. I have read the security committee transcripts. Not enough strategic value. Too far to risk ships. Acceptable losses. That's what you called 3,000 civilians. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Vex tried to regain control. We must discuss the larger issue. The humans are acting as vigilantes. They're undermining council authority. Perhaps the council needs to be undermined, someone said from the back. The argument continued for hours. But outside the chamber, in the markets and streets of Nexus Prime, a different conversation was happening. The news had spread, not just of the rescue at Velshara, but of the others. 37 rescues in 3 years. Humans responding to distress calls the council ignored. In a bar frequented by frontier traders, a Velarn merchant showed a hologram to anyone who would watch. It showed human Marines fighting in the tunnels, one soldier standing over a wounded child refusing to let the enemy pass. The hologram had been recorded by a colonist and spread across the network. They didn't ask for payment, the merchant said. Didn't ask for favors or treaties. They just came, fought, left. A grizzled cargo hauler from Theta Primus nodded. Same thing happened to us. Pirates hit our station. Council said they'd send help in 3 weeks. Humans showed up in 5 days. Scared the pirates so bad they haven't come back. The stories multiplied, spread, changed from whispers to shouts. On Velshara, Shalnara stood before a monument the colony had built. It was made of crystal, formed by hundreds of Velarn contributing pieces of themselves. It stood 10 meters tall and caught the sunlight, throwing rainbows across the rebuilt gardens. Carved into its base were words in both Velarn script and English. For those who came when hope had died. For the Stormbringers, with eternal gratitude, the people of Velshara. Young Kier approached, his crystal body now glowing with healthy green light. Director, the new defense system is online. The humans taught us well. Good, show me. They walked to the security center. The old system had been a simple scanner and 2 defense turrets. The new system was military grade. Sensors that could detect ships at the edge of the system. Automated turrets that could track multiple targets. A shield generator that could protect the entire colony. The Marines said if the Krath come back, we'll be ready. Kier said, but I don't think they will. Why not? Kier pulled up a communication intercept. The Krath High Command sent this to all their ships. It's a warning. Avoid colonies with human protection markers. Avoid colonies on frontier routes. Avoid engagements with human forces under any circumstances. Humans do not take prisoners in defense of civilians. Shalnara read it carefully. They're afraid. They're smart. The Krath lost 4 cruisers and 600 warriors here. For what? They got nothing. No slaves, no loot. Just losses. Kier closed the display. Other raiders are hearing the same thing. Don't touch the frontier. The humans are watching. Telmora joined them, his body still showing the crack from the cave-in but healed enough to work. We received a message from the human listening post. They want to establish an official communication link, so if we ever need help again, we can reach them directly. Accept it, Shalnara said immediately. And Telmora? Send them something. A message. Tell them we haven't forgotten. That we never will. Far from Velshara, in a sector the Council had written off as lawless, the Thunderhead and her fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. They had picked up another beacon. A mining convoy under attack by raiders. Captain Chen stood on her bridge looking at the tactical display. Time to target? 4 minutes at full burn. The convoy? They're trying to run. 3 freighters, no weapons. Raiders are closing. Chen's expression hardened. All ships, attack speed. Weapons free. Let's remind these raiders why they should find honest work. The fleet accelerated. In the convoy, a freighter captain watched his sensors in disbelief. Who are they? His co-pilot asked, checking signatures. Oh, my ancestors. They're human. Humans. But we didn't call for help. We're not even a colony, just independent haulers. The captain stared at the approaching ships. I don't think they care. I don't think they need a formal request. The raiders saw the human fleet and immediately changed course. They ran. They had heard the stories. The Thunderhead didn't pursue. The raiders were leaving, and that was enough. Chen opened a channel to the convoy. Freighter convoy, this is USCS Thunderhead. Are you damaged? The captain fumbled with his communications. No, some damage to Freighter 2's engines, but we're operational. Why did you help us? You were in trouble. Chen said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. Do you need medical assistance? Engineering support? We're fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Stay safe out here. If you see trouble, call. Someone will hear. Chen closed the channel. Morrison stood beside her. That's the 5th intercept this month. Word is spreading. That's good. Chen looked at the star map. But it also means more people will test us. See if we really show up every time. Will we? Chen didn't hesitate. Yes. Even though the Council hates it? Even though it's stretching our resources? Especially because the Council hates it. Chen pulled up a new display. Reports from the frontier. Crime down by 40% in areas humans had responded to. Distress calls up because people believed someone would answer. Morrison, do you remember why you joined the Marines? My father was a colonist on Kepler 186. Pirates hit them when I was a kid. The Council said help was coming. It took 3 months. By then, half the colony was dead or taken. My father survived, but... Morrison's jaw tightened. I joined so that no one else would wait 3 months for help that comes too late. Exactly. Chen closed the display. That's what this is about. Not politics. Not showing up the Council. Just making sure that when someone calls for help, someone answers. A communication came through. Captain, we're receiving multiple distress signals. Looks like coordinated pirate attacks across 3 systems. Chen and Morrison exchanged looks. How many ships do we have in response range? Chen asked. All of them if we split the fleet. Chen made the decision in seconds. Do it. Send the Relentless to the nearest signal. Belfast and Cheyenne to the second. We'll take the third. Full burn, all ships. The human fleet split apart, each group racing toward a different crisis. This was becoming normal. Every week more calls, more raiders testing the borders, more people learning that humans would come. On Velshara, Shalnara received a message on the new communication link. It was simple. Velshara, this is Frontier Station 7. We're coordinating rescue operations across multiple systems. There's a civilian station under attack in Sector 19. We're stretched thin. Can you provide any information about the sector? You're the closest colony. Shalnara felt a strange emotion. They were asking her for help. Not to fight, just to provide information. To be part of the network of people watching out for each other. She responded immediately, sending everything the colony knew about Sector 19. Trade routes. Pirates known to operate there. Hiding spots. Acknowledged, Velshara, you just saved lives. Thank you. She sat back, her crystal body glowing. 3 weeks ago they had been dying in the dark, waiting for a salvation that wouldn't come. Now they were helping others. Because humans had shown them that someone always answers. Months passed. The council continued to debate and argue about human actions. They passed resolutions condemning unauthorized military operations. They demanded humans stop their vigilante activities. The humans ignored them. Every distress call received an answer. Not always in time, not always with a full fleet. But someone always came. The frontier learned this truth. In the markets, frontier traders began to relax. Haulers took routes they had previously considered too dangerous. Colonies were established in areas once thought too remote, all because of one simple truth. The humans were listening. A full year after the Battle of Velshara, Shalnara received an invitation. The human government was hosting a gathering. All the colonies, stations, and ships they had rescued were invited to Earth. She made the journey with a delegation of 50 Velarn. When their ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth, she saw something that made her crystal body glow with wonder. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of people. Every species the humans had saved, all gathered here.